Welcome to Asian American Life. I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. Today we have a special show ahead as we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We'll take a look at stories that have enriched our communities, including my involvement with the first Filipino American encyclopedia. So what is the significance with May, and how did this all start?
In the late 1970s, New York Representative Frank Horton and Hawaii Senator Daniel Inouye fought for Asian Americans to be recognized for their contributions to the U.S. The lawmakers chose May to commemorate two significant events. On May 7, 1843, the first Japanese immigrants arrived in America. On May 10, 1869, Chinese railroad workers helped to connect the Transcontinental Railroad. In October 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a resolution proclaiming a 7-day period dedicated to Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Then, in 1992, President George Bush signed a bill declaring May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Today, many people celebrate by attending events to recognize Asian American history. Up next on Asian American Life, Who's Who of Filipino Americans and their contributions to history. Brooklyn Book Bodega shares the love of reading, plus ballroom dancing. And artist Susan Chen paints portraits worth 1,000 words. This and more on Asian American Life.
Filipino Americans have a long history in the United States, stories that we have covered on the show for the last 10 years. But it wasn't until recently that we could find our history and experiences in one book. In this case, 2 books, now available at libraries across the country.
Encyclopedia launches don't normally attract big crowds, but this book launch has been a long time coming for the Filipino American community.
It was a really special moment walking into the room and seeing our Encyclopedia book launch so packed, and not just packed physically, but also packed with love and energy.
Dr. Kevin Nadal, along with Drs. Alison Tintianco-Cubales and E.J. David, are the editors and force behind the Sage Encyclopedia of Filipina-X-O Studies, the first comprehensive book focused on the history and experience of Filipino Americans.
I think it represents many, many generations of Filipino Americans' voices and lived experiences finally being expressed, finally being shouted to be heard by the world.
When I look at these encyclopedias, I see so many years of feeling insignificant. I feel so many years of feeling like we can't find ourselves in the books. And I see all of those painful moments, but then I also think about it and I'm like, wow, we were able to do this.
According to Pew Research, 4.2 million Filipinos live in the U.S., making them the third largest Asian group in the country. But there are still few scholarly works and books centered on the Fil-Am experience. Nadal, who is the first Asian American to hold the prestigious title of Distinguished Professor at John Jay College, is a well-known academic scholar with 14 books under his belt. But he was still surprised when Sage, one of the country's largest publishing companies, approached him about a new book.
Prior to the pandemic, they asked me if I would be interested in publishing an encyclopedia on any topic of my choice, which felt very humbling and also kind of surreal, because hardly ever do publishers ask academics, do you want to publish something on anything you want to?
Without hesitating, he knew his next book would be one that focused solely on the Filipino American community. But he and his co-editors decided to do it a little differently, inviting more than 300 community members, all specialists in their fields, to contribute.
This encyclopedia does feel more accessible than other types of textbooks in the past because of the community spirit. Like something that really made me feel really joyful is seeing people post on their social media accounts that they contributed an entry to the encyclopedia. They had never published anything before. They're showing their parents and posing with the book.
The book covers more than 350 wide-ranging subjects, from the history of the Delano grape strike to Filipinos on Broadway, from Filipino veterans in World War II to politics. Some of the contributors came to the New York book launch, including New York's newest assemblyman, Stephen Raga, who wrote an entry.
Once you have something you can reference that says that you could look through and cite that of all the incredible things Filipino Americans have done, not just in the state of New York, but across the United States throughout the entire history, that could be a game changer. So happy to see that in libraries and in universities across the country.
I was also honored to write this section on Filipino-American journalists.
That story had never been told. The history of Filipino-American journalism, much like the history of so many other things covered in here, just simply hasn't been told, at least in a way that is comprehensive, in a way in which people can learn from the past as well as understand what's happening in contemporary times.
For all three editors, all accomplished scholars in their fields, the publication of these books had a deeper meaning. Like many immigrant families, encyclopedias played a big role in their childhoods.
I showed these books to my mom. And that was this moment that I'll never forget, because she was like, wow. She goes, I look, because she put encyclopedias in our home. You know, she saved up to get book by book, and we actually still have them on our shelf.
This book hits a little bit differently, and I can't believe you're gonna make me cry, but it hits differently because this book is not about me. This book is about the community, you know? This book is about the hundreds of thousands of Filipino Americans who migrated to this country in the early 1900s and had no voice. And now, perhaps we can learn a little bit more about them. We can learn a little bit more about the hardships, the pain, the suffering, the racism, the oppression, the violence they endured. No longer do we have to be voiceless, and now we can actually have the opportunity to make sure that everyone knows our stories.
I'm Ernabel DeMillo for Asian American Life.
I'm Vivian Lee. Studies show that the more books there are in a child's home, the greater their outcomes in school and in life. There's one organization based in Brooklyn that's trying to do just that for children across New York City. On a rainy Saturday near downtown Brooklyn, more than 100 people plowed through boxes of new and gently used children's books at Brooklyn Book Bodega. Everyone is welcome to take home what they can carry for free.
Growing up, I didn't have many books in the house, you know, and my parents couldn't afford books. So I understand the importance of something like this.
Keisha Darius teaches 7th and 8th grade English language arts in New York City and builds her classroom library by coming here. So does Leolyn Scott, a 2nd grade teacher at a Brooklyn charter school who lives for photos from her students that show their home libraries growing by the shelf.
With families working with busy schedules, you're not always able to take your scholars to the library, and being able to have an organization like Brooklyn Book Bodega where they're like building your home library and they have ownership, you know, it kind of like lessens that stress.
It's so special. It feels like a gift, and the average cost of a book is $19. And that's an unaffordable luxury for people.
Seema Aghera co-founded this bookish nonprofit with friends Rebecca Cohen and Tamara Jakimowicz in 2018. Their mission, to increase the number of New York City homes that have more than 100 books.
And when we did the research, it's clear that book access is important. Personal libraries should be created in homes.
Indeed, a 2014 study by the University of Australia and the University of Nevada, Reno found that 15-year-olds in 42 countries who had personal libraries of about 100 books had reading levels that were 1.5 years higher than their grade, compared to peers who had fewer books. 4 years later, the same researchers measured the literacy, numeracy, and technology skills of 160,000 adults in 31 countries. Those who owned at least 80 books when they were teenagers tested higher in cognitive ability, even high school dropouts. Every week now, hundreds of books are collected from drop-off points or delivered to the hub by donors themselves, like Arkina D'Agostino, whose kids collected more than 1,000 books.
They did it all. This is the only part we did. They did the flyers. They went to people's homes. Well, I supervised that too. But they went to people's homes and did the collection, the sorting. I mean, it was just like I have tons of the books all over our house.
For Aghera, the story of Brooklyn Book Bodega takes a couple of pages from her own.
My upbringing was community was the core of it. My mom didn't speak English till she came to this country. My dad, mom came in 1969. My dad came to study for his master's in agriculture in Tuskegee, Alabama. We were one of the very few South Asian families. For a while, what they did was help others as they came, whether it was their family or their friends. So our house was like a revolving door of families that came in, but the door was always open. We're an open community for all, and there's a space for everyone at the bodega. We don't want to take place of the library. We don't want to take place of bookstores. We want to provide an additional resource for families to own books in their home. As a kid, my family, we'd be like, oh, you want to go to the library? Let's go to the library. We couldn't buy books. My family was very education-centered. And that was the other piece of it, is that they would say, you're going to the library to learn about other topics, things that they couldn't teach us as an immigrant family.
By the end of 2022, Brooklyn Book Bodega had given away nearly 250,000 books to roughly 75,000 families, individuals, and community organizations.
We have food pantries asking for books to support their families who are getting food. We have neighborhood associations. We have youth service organizations, coaches who are supporting their kids on the field and off the field. They're asking for books for us, for their athletes, everyday people who are looking at youth as a whole and how can they service them. And that's really the exciting part about Brooklyn Book Bodega.
For more information, visit brooklynbookbodega.org. For Asian American Life, I'm Vivian Lee.
I'm Kyung Yoon. There's a saying that the right music can make you forget everything or remember everything. For pianist Donna Weng Friedman, one particular waltz by Chopin contains a precious and powerful memory. Donna Weng Friedman is an award-winning pianist who's on the faculty of the Mannes School of Music and has performed as a soloist at major concert halls around the world. Born in Queens, Donna started at Juilliard at the age of 7 and has always considered New York to be her home. But that didn't stop a stranger from harassing her as she walked her dog in Central Park in 2020 during the height of the pandemic and blaming her for the coronavirus.
Out of nowhere, this very large, burly man lunges towards me. He's like rushing me, and I don't know what was happening. And he starts screaming in my face, every anti-Asian slur he could think of. And he said, get out of this country or get what you deserve. And he kind of cornered me, and I was with my little dog, and he came so close to me, I thought he was going to strike me or push me down.
Luckily, some bystanders showed up, and the man fled into the subway. But experiencing such blatant anti-Asian hate at a time when violent crimes against Asians were surging in New York City and around the country left Donna shaken for months.
I've lived in New York all my life practically, since 1981. And I love this city. And one of my favorite things to do in the city is to walk around and just be part of the neighborhood. After that incident, I didn't leave my apartment for 7 months.
During this time of isolation, Donna found comfort in listening to music by Asian American composers and knowing the power of music to build bridges of healing and understanding. She collaborated with the classical music station WQXR to create a video series called Heritage and Harmony, showcasing Asian American musicians sharing their stories and performing works by Asian composers. In 2021, she released an album called Heritage and Harmony: Silver Linings, featuring music by Asian American and other underrepresented composers of color, which won 2 silver medals at the 2022 Global Music Awards. This year, she has a new project, a deeply personal one, focusing on a story about her father. Donna is producing and directing a short film called Never Fade Away, featuring Chun-Wei Chan, the first principal dancer of Chinese descent at the New York City Ballet, and ballerina Xiao Cao from mainland China, here shown in rehearsals. The 2 dancers play Donna's mother and father, immigrants who came to this country with nothing, yet built a life in New York and, along the way, sacrificed to make it possible for Donna to follow her musical dreams. Donna recalls an unforgettable moment at home with her dad when she was 12 years old.
I was playing the piano. I was playing this beautiful Chopin waltz for the first time. And he came home from work and he listened to me for a few minutes. Then he goes into the kitchen where my mom was making dinner, and out they come dancing, waltzing and twirling around the room. And there was just so much joy and love in the room and in my heart. I didn't want it to end.
The film captures the emotions of that evening and also reveals a stunning connection between that Chopin waltz and her father's love for music that changed his life and ultimately Donna's forever.
It's my tribute to my father, to my mother, and how grateful I am to them for what they've sacrificed to give me this incredible life filled with opportunity. But I also believe that the immigrant experience is so important because it's the creativity, the grit, and the resilience of immigrants. It's because of those brave people that our country, has really been, flourishing.
Never Fade Away is currently in production. It'll have its premiere at NYU in New York City in late May and early June. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
We all know that ballroom dancing is a thing among our Asian American seniors. So I went to New York City's Chinatown to find out why so many find sanctuary in movement. It's 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and these seniors are floating on their feet inside the Imperial Ballroom, right in the heart of New York City's Chinatown.
There's a lot of people today.
Oh, happy Sunday.
Irene Weng and Ming Chau have managed the Imperial Ballroom for more than 28 years.
It's amazing that this group is so energetic. They come 7 days.
Yeah.
It all started on the dance floor, of course.
I was looking for a teacher, and then he came and he said, "Oh, I'm a teacher." So I learned from him.
What did you think of him as a dancer when you first met him?
I think he was pretty good. I think he was pretty good looking too.
Now this was my wife.
Ming Chau, who immigrated from Vietnam to pursue a dance career, and Irene Weng, an immigrant from Malaysia, tangoed their way through competitions and performances in the tri-state area before they opened the Imperial Ballroom in 1992.
He just loved dancing. He couldn't imagine what to do. Besides dancing, in Vietnam, he was already dancing. Of course, when he arrived, he has other jobs, but his heart is always dancing.
That's why we open studio, so you have a space to teach.
And they continue to teach.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we have Cuban rap.
The simple steps that we teach, alemana, hand to hand.
So when you dance, what goes through your head? What goes through your mind? What do you feel?
What do I feel?
Yeah, when you're dancing together.
We feel joy. Sometimes we feel love, depends what dance we're doing.
From beginning. Depends on what day, huh?
Yeah, what dance.
From beginning we feel love.
Yeah, depends what dance. Sometimes the waltz, the music, it depends.
Yeah.
But we always find joy in dancing, always.
The folks here, mostly immigrants from China's Fujian province, are finding joy too.
We are recognized as the studio that never closes. The only time we closed were during the pandemic for 15 months, that we were forced to close.
Though business took a dramatic halt, Irene and Ming held their ground through the pandemic and then the fear of anti-Asian hate. This year's tragic mass shooting at a California dance studio did not shake the pace of their clientele. At this sanctuary of movement and grace, the troubles of the world are apparently left strictly off the dance floor.
They come every day, but they don't talk, nobody talks about.
As to why ballroom dance studios are so popular among Asian American seniors, Irene has a theory.
We are mostly immigrants. When immigrants come to another country, they work very hard. They only take care of their family, taking care of the kids. They have no time for themselves. When the kids grow up, and then they try to think for some new hobby for themselves. Dancing is the most healthy for them. Then they meet a lot of new friends, mix and mingle, and then they dance together. And then they will go out together for dim sum. It's a very nice day to come.
And decades of fun for the pair who followed their passion in the hustle of their dancing shoes. They're sure to cha-cha for decades more to come.
We're proud that we made it in America, that we are successful in the dance business. When the music starts, I'm like dancing. Working and dancing is like, what job can you do that?
The Imperial Ballroom is open 7 days a week in New York City's Chinatown. For Asian American Life, I'm Rainer Ramirez.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then artist Susan Chen's portraits speak volumes about identity and the Asian American experience. These paintings depict faces of the Asian diaspora, portraits that have long been missing from mainstream art.
It's like a very specific class of people who get remembered in history, and so there are a lot of other races that sort of get erased or left out. So it's interesting to be living in a time now where there is artists who are working to sort of democratize what portraiture could mean. And Susan Chen happens to be one of those artists. Having painted almost 70 portraits of Asian Americans over Zoom during the pandemic, Chen is a 2022 Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, a Hopper Prize winner, and her portrait titled "I Am Not the Kung Flu" from her exhibition "I Am Not a Virus" graced the September cover of New York Magazine. I think people think Asian Americans all fit into a particular box, or it's a very specific oh, this is the immigrant experience. But I've just learned from painting all these portraits that everyone is so different, and their experiences are very singular. Which also applies to Chen.
The painter's artistic journey has been anything but straightforward. Growing up in Hong Kong, Chen came from a family of illiterate farmers and factory workers from China and Taiwan. Chen attended an English boarding school on scholarship where she was one of just a few minorities. She later came to the U.S. to attend college where she was discouraged from taking art classes.
I had parents who were like, we didn't, work this hard, get you to an Ivy League school so that you could just throw it all away to become a painter.
But fortunately, others encouraged Chen to pursue her passion.
When I got out of school, I had a corporate job for a year, but I was always painting on the weekends, and I had a lot of coworkers that were like, what are you doing here? You should make paintings, and it sort of helped encourage me to go to art school.
Chen received her Master of Fine Arts from Columbia University just as the pandemic hit. That's when she started painting portraits of Asian Americans as a reaction to anti-Asian sentiment. Chen, whose own sister was twice the target of hate attacks, put a spotlight on the humanity of her subjects during a time when there was so much blind hatred towards Asian Americans.
For me, and probably a lot of sitters, you sort of grow up and you watch a lot of TV where you don't see yourself in it. And so your aspirations, maybe subconsciously, you're hoping, sort of always wanting to be a little whiter or less Asian. And I think painting these portraits have been really good. Also surveying sitters and how they feel. It's really putting yourself front and center and feeling the sense of worthiness that you are good enough and you don't have to always aspire to be something that you're not.
When I asked Chen if she views her work as social activism, she says maybe it is, but it's not intentional.
I'm not really a political or confrontational person, so sometimes I think it's funny when I look back on the work and I'm like, oh, maybe I am.
The accomplished artist says the most satisfying and important part of her work is connecting with her community.
At the end of the day, the goal is for people to be involved and to feel seen and get to share their stories.
Chen is currently working on a new show to share more stories through large multiracial group portraits. Many of Chen's recent paintings are on display at the Aldrich Museum. For Asian American Life, I'm Susan Chen.
That's our show for now. I hope you check out the Sage Encyclopedia of Filipina-X-O American Studies, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Asian American Life. I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. We'll see you next time.